Try my best. Yeah, thank you. And good morning, everybody. My name is Robin John, and on behalf of Andreas, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference for having us and welcome you to our talk. In this talk, I would like to present our programming solution, Pioneera, in its latest stage of development, using an excerpt of my PhD as a case study. Okay. I will start with a short recap why we came up with Pioneera and how it actually works. So, lithic artifacts seem to follow some general morphological templates that allow us to describe them in terms of typologies such as draper, borer, or back point. Using typologies, we are doing comparatively well in recording this kind of information, to which we refer as diversity. Artifact variability, though, an example, the differences in shape and size within a single type, is reflected rather poorly. This is a consequence of the polythetic design of typologies that allows for a high in-group variability, which in turn is not recorded. To overcome this, we need a trait-based recording system tuned to analytical methods that allow for the quantitative analysis of morphological change. But taking individual measurements on artifacts by hand one after the other and subsequently feeding the data into special computer programs for calculating statistics is very time consuming, prone to error, while measuring or transferring the data limited to a few measurable parameters and unstandardized. Well, and this is where we came up with our programming solution for the recording and analysis of lithic artifacts. It is called Python R environment for artifact analysis, or short, Pioneera. Let me just really briefly introduce you to the workflow of Pioneera. For those of you who are interested in details, please don't hesitate to contact us. Starting point is a standard plate with drawings or photographs from any publication where all artifacts should have the same scale. In the first step, the user needs to place a black-filled square with an edge length of 1 centimeter relative to the scale in the upper left corner and remove bigger sized objects such as the ventral or lateral views of the artifact, for example. The program takes the so-prepared image and finds the outlines of the artifact. Each artifact is then reoriented with its longest extent placed vertically. As an example, the gray square represents the original minimum bounding rectangle of this triangle here, whereas the purple one shows the minimum bounding rectangle that will be turned upright by the program. Doing so, artifact alignment and therefore subsequent measurements are standardized. The outline of each artifact can now be exported and used further, for example, in geometric morphometrics. After that, the centerpiece of the program takes place, the metrical measurements. You can see here most of the metrical data that is calculated. Among standard measurements like length and width, you see this with the red color, it also returns a data set of innovative traits such as width of the left or the right part, or the length of the upper or lower part. One big advantage are measurements that are difficult to measure manually, such as the surface area or the position of the center of mass. For the center of mass parameter, we decided to set the geometrical centroid here, represented by the red dot, as 0.0, and measure the offset of the center of mass, the green dot, as a vector. As a vector represented with an x and an epsilon component. What can be seen here is that the elongation of the artifact has impact on the epsilon values, whereas asymmetry has impact on the x values. Pioneera is also able to handle retouch information, but for the sake of time, we will not go into this today. All the data is then saved in separate files and can be investigated by built-in functions for multivariate statistics, which I will get to in just a moment. But first, back to archaeology. As a case study, we've chosen the earliest examples of shoral points that made their first appearance in Eastern and Central European inventories during the late Jurassic or the so-called Lündorf-Kosjenkin. We collected 71 points from 21 sites dating well between 37 and 25.4 kiloyears calibrated before present. The color of the sites in this map refer to the radiocarbon age. The lighter the blue, the younger the sites. The sites are clustering quite distinctly in 3 core areas, which will be important in a few moments. Yeah. After we let Pyronera obtain the metrical data from all pieces, we are able to run a PCA, principal component analysis, within Pyronera to better understand the data distribution. The sites on the legend to the right are again sorted by radiocarbon age. Geographical clusters are depicted by different markers. We can see already that the geographical clusters do not build distinct clusters on the first 2 PC axes, which means that the 3 geographical clusters are presumably not very different from each other. Yeah, considering the morphometrics, of course. Also, we do not gain a clear separation by age, which may be visible because of the coloring of the dots. What we can see here is that features connected with size are the most important values on the first PC axis. So how do we inspect for morphological changes in artifacts through time? We have different options programmed in Pyronera. First thing we could do is to observe each morphometric feature individually. Like here for width, for example, you have the radiocarbon ages and the actual width of the artifacts from the inventories. Or we could test each feature for correlation with time. Highlighted here are those features that are correlated significantly with the radiocarbon age. As you can see, the width and the length width index seem to play a huge role for the shoulder points of the late Gravettian. In order to better analyze possible chronological trends in a data set, a proper method is the so-called redundancy analysis, or short RDA. It tests parameters in their relation to a specific aspect called the canonical variable. In that case, the canonical variable is time, or the radiocarbon age. What you can see here is a typical output of the RDA. In this plot, the time is getting younger in negative epsilon direction. So in this direction, the age is getting younger. Features with negative values are increasing with the ongoing of time and vice versa. We observe that the shoulder points of the late Gravettian become wider, while at the same time nothing significant happens with the length. Therefore, the length width index is decreasing. Also, the overall area of the pieces increases. The change in the left to right ratio indicates a trend towards more asymmetric pieces towards the end of the Gravettian. The result is weak, as only about 3% of the data scatter is explained by time, but it's significant. So, in simple words, all differences between the artifacts regarding length, width, area, and so on can only be related to a small amount of the differences between the assemblage dates. So, morphological differences related to chronological position of the assemblages exist, but other differences between the artifacts that are not related to time are much more pronounced. This is highlighted by the fact that around 37% of the observed variancy in the entire dataset is explained by the first PC axis, which is unrelated to time. So here is the power of the RDA compared to the first PC axis. We then consider to observe the 3 geographical clusters separately. Unfortunately, no significant results can be calculated when using the time as canonical variable in each cluster. Another try was to use the information on dominant species in the site to check whether there is differences in the points that may be related to hunted animals. We actually found some. The length width index differs by far the most. So up here. As as the length for both species is more or less the same, and for sites with dominantly mammoth in the founder remains, the points are usually wider. The RDA shows the same result as the plot before. Over 4% of the variance in the data set can be explained by the site-dominant species. So I actually found this up here. We also had the opportunity to compare the shoulder points of the Eastern Crevettian to subsequent pieces from the Iberian Solutrean. I hope you can see this plot more or less. The first thing we found is that the Solutrean pieces are less variable than the Crevettian ones regarding nearly every morphometric feature. So the green thingy is for the Eastern Crevettian, whereas the reddish one is for the Iberian Solutrean, and you see here width and length and length-width index and area and so on, the morphometric features we obtained from Pioneera. Interestingly, the significant differences between the shoulder points of those two technocomplexes and regions are not in size, but within the shape of the point itself. Iberian Solutrean points tend to have a much longer distal part, respectively a shorter hafting part, and therefore a lower center of mass than the Crevettian ones. This stands out when we calculate the mean shapes in geometric morphometrics, where sizes do not matter. It's just a comparison of shape. So we have the Eastern Crevettian ones here and the Solutrean points here, and if you compare them, you see in the mean shapes the lower, the shorter shafting part. You may now ask yourself whether 3% of explained variancy, so to say, change through time is within a time frame of roughly 5,000 years is actually much. How much change is to be expected in such a time frame? Or are 5,000 years maybe too short or maybe too long to find more pronounced changes? Yeah, well, we do also, and up to now we can only compare those results to a study we conducted on Crevettian points in Lower Austria and Moravia, which was published earlier this year. The observed time span of this study was more or less the same. We were able to calculate a value of 2.7% explained variancy for the time in those points. Further study, which I will conduct in my PhD, hopefully leads to a better understanding of the actual meaning of such values. So to conclude this talk, using the case study of the shoulder points of the Eastern Crevettian, I showed you some basic functions of Pioneera to detect morphological features on stone artifacts, and multivariate statistical functions to detect the effect of time, geographical position, or faunal information on morphological features implemented in Pioneera. I also presented some preliminary results for the shoulder points of the Eastern Crevettian. What we found is that there is a high variability in the morphology of those points, and there is only a slight amount of differences in the data set that can be actually be explained by the ongoing of time. These low values for time, however, are comparable with those from previous studies on Crevettian points. I'm sorry. Also, the site-dominant species do not have a huge explanatory power. In the comparison to subsequent pieces from the Iberian Solutrean, however, we found distinct differences in variability. Additionally, we found that the most striking differences between points of those two technocomplexes and regions are not within size, but in shape or design of the points. So I would like to thank you for your attention. Especially, I would like to thank Mircea for giving us the points from Romania, really. And in case the talk caught your interest, I would like to give you the opportunity to find Pioneera for download on GitHub or Zenodo. We would be really happy to see other researchers use it. I'm looking forward to your. Looking forward for your opinion, and hope we can have a good discussion later on. Thank you.
presentation, you mentioned you were not going to go into detail for the retouch. I was wondering whether the size of the retouch was influencing the results, or if it could be used to orientate them as well.
I've checked it. I've turned all the shoulder points to have the actual shoulder on the same side, and checked if this has impact on the results we make, and it has not. The only thing where it has impact on is the left to right ratio, so the shifting of the point, of course. Yeah. But the results for width and length and so on are the same.
Comparing to the other points, because so according to some technological features it could be a little bit problematic. Yeah, maybe like maybe unfinished point or something like that. And there is some discussion about it shoulder point or not. Maybe because there is some like Western damages on this point. How it fits according to this program with the other. There were some points the diagram. I don't know, maybe you don't know which point is.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the radiocarbon age of Petrokovic, but yeah, might be if you say it's only one, so it's probably this one. So yeah. According to this plot, it would be fit quite well in this in the image of points getting wider to the end of the curvature. But the thing you mentioned is, I think it's one thing for the curvature. Really, we have a quite big variability in how in shape and design of the points, and I think this is a quite common image for curvature ones, even especially compared to Solutrean points, where the standardization is much higher.
Yeah, because it looks really nice, but then it's just closed in this large place.
Yeah.
If you don't have a more, maybe just put one more piece there is, but it's not so significant by the shoulder point. And the second question, if you use this software for the other two types, do you need to do some changes in the code, or you can use it directly and
yeah. In the beginning, we designed it for points really, but I don't see a problem using it on scrapers. So not I would be aware of it. I think it would do the job too. Yeah, and you can design the code by your needs also. So yeah, we can have a talk about it maybe later. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.